For my assignment, I decided to read a true crime book. The book I chose was In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. A very powerful quote that I found in the book was, "What a terrible thing when neighbors can't look at each other without kind of wondering. Yes, it's a hard fact to live with, but if they ever do find who done it, I'm sure it'll be a bigger surprise than the murderers themselves." In Cold Blood is a twisted true crime book written by Truman Capote. In this book, Capote tells the tragic story of the Clutter family murders. The story switches back and forth following the Clutter family and their everyday lives and the steps taken by the murderers of why they were wanting to rob the Clutter family and what was so special about them. The Clutters are a small, wealthy family who live on a farm. One night, two men entered their home with the intention of robbing them and killing all witnesses. The next morning, all 4 bodies were found tied up in separate rooms, shot in the head, and the father sliced at the throat. And then the search for the murderers began. As the book continued, it showed the reader all the backgrounds of the main characters and what makes the murderers' minds so twisted and what was so special about the Clutter family. The story of how the murderers met, why they are so interested in robbing the Clutters, and the events leading up to the tragedy. Then it continued to the trials and ends with the sentencing. The story contained so many surprising twists and horrific scenes that it's easy to forget it's a nonfiction book. Who murdered them? Was it a neighbor or a friend? There's no doubt the author did a great job keeping your reader's attention. And even though you know the whole time who were the murderers and how everything went down and when things happened and who was going to die and when the murderers will be found, you're still on the edge of your seat trying to flip to the next page every time. I recommend this book to anyone who loves reading about crime and the twisted minds behind it. I personally love reading about true crime because I was going to go into that field, but I just think it's interesting to see all the murderers' minds and why they decide to do certain things, and I recommend that book to anybody who is interested in that kind of stuff. And I made this visual aid for it as a book cover. I drew the rope that they were tied up with and the shotgun shells for how they were all shot in the head, and the knife for how the father was cut in the throat. And it was surprising me because this book is actually one of the murderers was kind of drawn into it. It wasn't really his choice of whether he wanted to do it or not, but one of the murderers was the mind behind it, and then the other one just thought that they were going to go rob them and they didn't think anything else was going to happen. But yeah.